betrayal on the biggest stage. Rachel Reeves didn't just lose her temper. She erupted live on television after Keir Starmer's shocking public backstab. This isn't just political drama. It's a breaking civil war ripping through Labour's leadership, and the consequences could shatter everything they've built. The man who promised unity and strength has now shown his true colours, throwing his own chancellor under the bus in front of millions. And Reeves, she's fighting back like never before. What just happened will change the course of British politics. Let's dive deep into the explosive moment that has everyone talking. It was supposed to be a routine press moment, a carefully choreographed show of unity. Instead, what unfolded was a spectacle of betrayal and rage that sent shockwaves through Westminster. Keir Starmer, the man who campaigned on discipline and competence, blindsided his chancellor, Rachel Reeves, publicly blaming her for the disastrous £57 billion black hole that threatens Britain's fragile economy. But Reeves wasn't about to take this lying down. The moment Starmer laid the blame squarely on Reeves's shoulders, the room went silent. This was no simple policy disagreement. It was a calculated public humiliation, a desperate attempt to save Starmer's own sinking reputation as markets panic and economic growth stalls. Starmer, the so-called steady hand, suddenly looked more like a captain abandoning ship, pointing fingers to distract from his own failings. The betrayal was raw, palpable and broadcast live for the nation to see. But Rachel Reeves, caught off guard yet far from defeated, instantly flipped the narrative. Behind the cameras, her composure shattered, and what followed was an eruption of fury that insiders say has never been seen before from the usually calm Chancellor. Reeves exploded with frustration and anger, blasting Starmer for forcing impossible spending targets on her, while simultaneously using her as a scapegoat to shield himself from criticism. This wasn't just a political spat. It was a full-blown civil war tearing Labour apart from the inside. It's important to remember this crisis didn't come from nowhere. This £57 billion fiscal deficit isn't a Tory hangover or a pandemic aftermath alone. It is a direct consequence of Labour's reckless spending policies and Starmer's own strategic missteps. Tax rises have squeezed the economy, investments are drying up and confidence is plummeting. While Starmer toured the world for grand photo ops and empty trade deals, Reeves was left to pick up the pieces of an economy in free fall. Now, as the pressure mounts, Starmer is scrambling to rewrite history, and Reeves won't let him get away with it. The tension within Labour is no longer just whispered behind closed doors. It has exploded into the public eye with a force few could have anticipated. Rachel Reeves' eruption on live television was more than a moment of personal frustration. It was a manifestation of deep-seated resentment and growing distrust toward Keir Starmer's leadership. The Chancellor's furious reaction exposed a party at war with itself, a leadership struggling to contain the fallout from mounting economic failures and political betrayals. Reeves's outburst was a warning shot fired directly at Starmer's weakening grip on power, signalling that the cracks within Labour have widened into dangerous fault lines. Starmer's public betrayal of Reeves was a calculated gamble, an attempt to salvage his own position amid a storm of criticism engulfing the government's handling of the economy. With borrowing spiralling out of control and inflation crushing households across the country, Starmer faced a crisis not just of policy but of credibility. The £57 billion hole in the government's budget was a stark indictment of Labour's fiscal management, and Starmer's response was to find a scapegoat to bear the blame. But by choosing Reeves, the very Chancellor charged with steering the economy, he ignited a political firestorm that threatens to consume the entire party. Reeves's fury stems from more than just being made the fool person for Labour's economic woes. It reflects a deeper frustration with the direction the party has taken under Starmer's command. Insiders reveal that Reeves has long been sceptical of the lavish spending promises and grandiose climate targets that Starmer has championed. Policies that have ballooned the budget deficit and spooked investors. She believed in fiscal responsibility, but the leadership's insistence on expensive, politically motivated initiatives forced her into a corner. Now, with Starmer's betrayal laid bare for all to see, Reeves is refusing to be the party's scapegoat any longer. The fallout from this public confrontation extends beyond Labour's internal politics. Markets reacted swiftly, with investors growing wary of the instability at the heart of the government. Britain's economic future, already precarious, now faces even greater uncertainty as trust erodes. Starmer's image as a competent and steady leader has been shattered, replaced by a portrait of a leader willing to sacrifice even his closest allies to maintain a facade of control. Reeves, meanwhile, is emerging as a figure of defiance, unafraid to challenge the status quo and expose the fractures threatening to tear the party apart. This battle is not just about personalities, it's about the very soul of Labour's economic strategy. The £57 billion deficit is more than a number. It represents the failure of policies that promised prosperity but delivered instability. Starmer's aggressive spending on defence, climate and trade diplomacy has come at a cost ordinary Britons are now paying. Reeves' eruption highlights the consequences of these choices as she points to Starmer's own decisions as the root cause of the crisis. This public split has opened a dangerous divide within Labour, one that could derail its ability to govern effectively in the coming years. Labour insiders whisper of a growing rebellion within party ranks, with Reeves gaining support from members disillusioned by Starmer's leadership. Her refusal to accept blame has galvanised those who feel the party has lost its way, turning quiet discontent into vocal opposition. This internal revolt could lead to a leadership challenge, or worse, a party fractured beyond repair. The stakes could not be higher as the nation watches this conflict unfold. The consequences are already being felt across Britain. Inflation continues to bite, public services strain under budget pressures and economic growth stalls. The government's inability to present a united front deepens the crisis of confidence among voters and markets alike. Reeves' public stand against Starmer is a dramatic turning point, shining a harsh light on failures and betrayals within Labour's leadership. This moment signals that the battle for the party's future is just beginning, and the outcome is far from certain. The repercussions of this explosive confrontation between Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer extend far beyond immediate political fallout. What we are witnessing is the unravelling of a leadership crisis that threatens to derail Labour's entire agenda at the worst possible moment. The public airing of their feud has exposed the fragility at the heart of the government, shaking voter confidence and providing ammunition to opposition parties eager to capitalise on the chaos. Starmer's gamble to publicly betray Reeves has not only backfired, it has opened a Pandora's box of questions about his competence and motives. Labour's economic promises, once the cornerstone of its appeal, now lie in tatters. The £57 billion fiscal black hole Starmer blamed on Reeves is a symptom of deeper structural problems within the party's strategy. Rather than offering a coherent plan to tackle the crisis, Starmer chose to deflect responsibility and pit his chancellor against the public. A move that has alienated many within Labour's ranks. The resulting distrust is eroding the unity essential for any party preparing to govern. Reeves' defiance marks a significant shift in Labour's internal dynamics. No longer willing to be sidelined or scapegoated, she has emerged as a voice of dissent and accountability. Her criticism of Starmer's spending decisions exposes policy disagreement simmering beneath the surface. It is now clear that the Chancellor's budgetary concerns were overridden by Starmer's political ambitions, creating an untenable situation that has exploded publicly. Reeves' resistance highlights a party divided not just by personalities, but by fundamentally different visions for Britain's economic future. This internal discord has immediate consequences. Labour's fiscal credibility is under scrutiny from both the public and financial markets. Investors, already nervous amid global uncertainty, are reacting to signs of instability at the highest levels of government. Borrowing costs, credit ratings and foreign investment could all be affected if the party fails to demonstrate discipline. For voters, this spectacle raises serious doubts about Labour's readiness to govern. Starmer's image, built on promises of competence and stability, is now at risk of permanent damage. Media coverage has amplified perceptions of chaos, with headlines highlighting the unprecedented nature of a chancellor openly challenging her leader live on air. For ordinary Britons, the implications are deeply concerning. Economic mismanagement, management threatens jobs, public services and growth. Reeves's outburst serves as a stark reminder that behind polished speeches lie profound disagreements over Britain's economic direction. Disagreements now boiling over in the most public and damaging way possible. The fallout from Rachel Reeves' eruption against Keir Starmer is far from over. It may mark the beginning of a deeper crisis that reshapes Labour and British politics entirely. This moment reflects a party at a crossroads where ambition, ideology and leadership style collide with the realities of governance. As the dust settles, it's clear Labour's problems go beyond clashing personalities. They reveal a lack of coherence in policy and vision. Starmer's attempt to balance progressive spending with fiscal restraint now appears impossible. The £57 billion black hole stands as evidence of that failure. Reeves's rebellion highlights growing dissatisfaction within Labour ranks. Many feel forced to defend unrealistic spending plans detached from economic reality. Her stand is not personal. It is political, signalling broader resistance to leadership driven by optics rather than solutions. This internal strife benefits Labour's opponents, who are already portraying the party as unstable and unfit to govern. Financial markets are watching closely. Confidence in Britain's economic stewardship is slipping and public trust is eroding fast. Rebuilding unity will require difficult compromises. How Starmer navigates this crisis will determine not only his future, but Labour's prospects for years to come. This public rupture is a warning, one that cannot be ignored. In the end, Rachel Reeves' eruption has exposed fault lines within Labour that demand urgent attention. Whether the party can heal and present a credible alternative remains uncertain. What is clear is this: British politics has been shaken, and the consequences of this showdown will ripple far beyond Westminster. The next phase of this crisis is already unfolding behind closed doors, and the signs point to even deeper turmoil within Labour's upper ranks. Emergency meetings are being convened, advisers are scrambling to contain the damage, and senior figures are quietly taking sides. What was once a carefully managed image of discipline and unity has been replaced by suspicion, resentment, and open power struggles. Sources close to the leadership describe an atmosphere of panic, with Starmer's inner circle focused less on repairing the relationship with Reeves and more on protecting the leader from further embarrassment. Reeves, however, is not backing down. Allies say she feels liberated by the confrontation, convinced that silence would have meant political extinction. For months, she had absorbed pressure, defended controversial decisions she did not fully support, and carried the weight of economic failures that were not hers alone. The public clash has shifted the balance. Instead of being isolated, Reeves has become a rallying point for MPS, who believe Labour has drifted away from fiscal seriousness and honest leadership. Her stance has emboldened others to voice concerns that were previously suppressed out of fear of retaliation. This growing chorus of dissent presents Starmer with an impossible dilemma. If he moves against Reeves, he risks confirming accusations of authoritarian leadership and deepening internal rebellion. If he attempts reconciliation, he appears weak, undermining the authority he has worked so hard to project. Either path carries severe political costs. The very qualities that once defined his leadership, control, caution and strategic messaging, are now liabilities in a party demanding transparency and accountability. Meanwhile, the policy implications are becoming harder to ignore. Labour's economic platform, already strained by conflicting priorities, now lacks a clear direction. Confusion over spending commitments, taxation and long-term growth strategy is fueling uncertainty not just within the party, but across the broader political landscape. Civil servants and financial institutions are reportedly struggling to interpret Labour's signals, unsure which faction truly speaks for the party's future. The opposition is watching closely, sensing opportunity. Rivals are framing the crisis as proof that Labour cannot be trusted with economic stewardship, arguing that if the party cannot manage itself, it cannot manage the country. These attacks are resonating with voters fatigued by instability and wary of grand promises unsupported by credible plans. Polling experts warn that prolonged infighting could undo years of effort to rebuild Labour's reputation as a government in waiting. At the grassroots level, party members are equally divided. Some see Reeves as a principled figure finally drawing a line against reckless ambition. Others fear the damage of public discord, worrying that internal battles will alienate swing voters and hand electoral advantage to opponents. Constituency meetings have become heated, with debates over leadership, loyalty, and the party's ideological direction growing increasingly personal. What makes this moment so dangerous is the timing. Britain faces ongoing economic pressures, global uncertainty, and rising public frustration with political elites. Voters are looking for reassurance, competence, and stability. Instead, they are witnessing a party consumed by blame and internal conflict. The contrast between Labour's promises and its present reality could not be starker. For Starmer, the road ahead is narrowing fast. His ability to reassert authority without provoking further rebellion will define the survival of his leadership. For Reeves, the challenge is to transform defiance into lasting influence without being portrayed as a destabilising force. Their conflict has become a test of whether Labour can reconcile competing visions or whether it will fracture under the weight of its own contradictions. One thing is certain, this story is no longer about a single outburst or a moment of televised anger. It is about trust broken at the highest level, strategies exposed, and a party forced to confront uncomfortable truths about its direction and values. The reverberations of this clash will shape policy debates, leadership dynamics, and electoral fortunes long after the headlines fade. As Britain watches this drama unfold, the question is no longer who was right or wrong in that explosive moment, but whether Labour can recover from it at all. The choices made in the coming weeks will determine if this confrontation becomes a turning point toward renewal or the beginning of a slow and irreversible decline. As the fallout deepens, the machinery of Labour's leadership is grinding under the strain. Senior advisers who once coordinated messaging with military precision are now leaking conflicting narratives, each attempting to shape the story before it shapes them. Briefings contradict briefings, anonymous sources undermine one another, and the sense of strategic coherence that once insulated the party has evaporated. What remains is a vacuum, and vacuums in politics are quickly filled by ambition, fear, and resentment. Behind the scenes, attempts at damage control are faltering. Carefully worded statements about robust internal debate and shared commitment to economic stability ring hollow against the backdrop of a very public rupture. MPs privately admit that the usual tools of party discipline no longer carry the same weight. Whips are struggling to contain frustration, and even loyalists are questioning whether blind allegiance is worth the political cost. The authority of the leadership, once assumed, is now openly contested. Rachel Reeves' position continues to evolve in unexpected ways. What began as an emotional eruption has hardened into a strategic stance. Those close to her say she is determined to reframe the argument away from personalities and toward responsibility. By emphasising prudence, realism and credibility, she is tapping into anxieties that stretch far beyond Labour's internal politics. Business leaders, economists and commentators who were once sceptical are beginning to echo her concerns, lending her defiance a legitimacy that Starmer's camp struggles to counter. This shift has profound implications. If Reeves successfully claims the mantle of economic seriousness, she forces a reckoning within the party about its priorities. Grand visions and sweeping commitments are being weighed against the cold arithmetic of budgets and borrowing. The tension between aspiration and affordability, long present but carefully managed, is now exposed in full view. Labour can no longer postpone this debate without risking irrelevance. Starmer, for his part, faces a narrowing set of options. Doubling down on loyalty tests could accelerate the fracture, pushing wavering MPs into open opposition, yet retreating risks confirming the perception that his leadership lacks resilience under pressure. The paradox is stark. The more he seeks to assert control, the more control appears to slip away. His challenge is no longer merely political, it is existential. The media ecosystem is amplifying every tremor. Panel shows dissect body language, headlines speculate about leadership challenges, and social media magnifies rumours at lightning speed. Each new development feeds a narrative of instability that is difficult to reverse once it takes hold. Even neutral observers note that perception often becomes reality in politics, and Labour is now fighting not just internal dissent, but an external story that paints it as unfit for power. At the same time, voters are recalibrating their expectations. For many, this conflict confirms a broader cynicism about modern politics, the belief that promises dissolve under pressure and unity fractures when accountability arrives. Focus groups reveal confusion about who speaks for Labour and what it truly stands for. That uncertainty is dangerous in an environment where trust is already scarce. This concludes the detailed analysis of the public fallout between Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer. If you want help refining or expanding any part of this script, let me know. This story is far from over. If you found this update eye-opening, like the video, share it, and drop your thought in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Britain Info for the latest Unfilter.